Hey there, my name is Pravus, and welcome to Kapital, Sparks of Revolution. This is a new indie game just released yesterday as of April 28th, and on face value, it might seem like a pretty standard city builder and economic manager, but with indie-style graphics. Well, in reality, this game is actually so much more. Rather than just managing the economy, you are trying to manage the needs and the values of 3 different social classes in a devastated nation following World War I. Each class has their own needs and their own vision for how society ought to be rebuilt, and they are often at odds with each other. If you can't find a way to keep the peace, well then things might descend into anarchy very quickly. Very interesting premise for a game. This is developed by the Lapovich team as well as published by 1C Entertainment, who are actually the sponsors for today's video and the next couple of videos in this series, so a big thank you to them for that, and of course you guys can find more information in a link in the description down below. Now, for the sake of this video, I am going to be playing with the campaign mode, but I'm not going to focus too much on the narrative and the story because I'd like to leave you guys the freedom to experience some of that on your own. Really, the campaign mode is a good way to get yourself into the game, though. It does give you some guidelines for how you ought to be developing, and as long as you handle it all correctly, you might even survive. Who knows? So we'll give this one a shot. We'll play it on normal difficulty. That seems fine. Now, this is a very important little thing to understand here, right? People are going to run out of resources, there are going to be protests and riots, people are going to die, you cannot make everyone happy. It is virtually impossible to do. So you're going to be playing a really delicate balancing act. Don't beat yourself up if you can't manage it. That's part of the challenge of the game. People are always going to be in conflict. Again, very interesting idea for a game. That's one of the reasons I'm so drawn to it. And here we are in our city. From here on out, we're going to be getting some advisors from those 3 different social classes, giving us some idea what they want us to be doing. For example, this is Sir Stanton of the aristocrats, or the nobility, little hoity-toity folks. And he wants us to do things like rebuild the palace right away, because that stuff's most important, prestige and tradition. But who's this? Mr. Rockwill, a member of the bourgeois class, i.e. our entrepreneurs and our business class, who would say that's kind of a waste of money. We should be getting our economy back up and running. And later on, we are going to meet a representative of the workers class. Those are the 3 that you're going to need to manage. You may already be able to see where some of the conflicts are going to come into play. The aristocrats and the workers are going to want lots of state-run enterprises in order to make sure that their needs are met, whereas the business people will want profits. The aristocrats are going to hoard wealth for themselves, whereas the workers and the entrepreneurs may want to focus more on markets and spreading the wealth around. You get the idea. Basically, anything that one group wants, the other 2 probably don't. And that's where a lot of the conflict comes into play. Now, the first thing that the game wants us to do is to demolish some of these leftover ruins, because remember, we did lose pretty much everything after World War I, so we're going to have to demolish some of this. You can only ever demolish or build one thing at a time, right? So we're going to go ahead and demolish these 3 ruins because that's what we need, and by doing so, we're going to get ourselves some resources. Namely, we found some gold, which is our primary currency and the lifeblood of our economy, as well as some wood, which we can use for pretty much every construction project, at least until things like bricks and steel become useful. We also apparently have found alcohol. I'm not too sure how you found that in there, but good for you. Once that's all done, we have demolished these 3 ruins, we'll have enough resources to repair the palace. And even though I would say this probably isn't a great use of our resources, it's what the nobility want us to do. So fine, we'll go ahead and set that up. Thank you, Sir Stanton. A firm hand has cleared all of the ruins. Yeah, everyone agrees getting rid of ruins is a good idea. All right, let's go ahead and get this thing upgraded. Okay, that has been rebuilt, and as a result, we get a whole bunch more resources. More wood, more alcohol, some bread, some grain. I'll show you what we do with all of these later, though. So they're going to have a little discussion here as far as, like, the glories of old and how we ought to change things, and what they're trying to draw my attention to right now is laws. Now, kind of in a game like, I don't know, Frostpunk, we will be able to pass some laws every day or so, which will allow us to open up new features of our society and maybe change some things in a good way. So if we go to laws over here, for example, what they want us to do is go ahead and sign taxation into law, which will allow us to collect taxes from our residents. This is our primary way of generating extra gold, which we will then be spending on state-run enterprises like the production of wood, food, and so on. We'll also be able to gain money when we sell things like food and alcohol to our people later, but for now, taxes are a good way to get started. So we'll go ahead and sign this act. Looks like our people are happy with that, at least to some degree or another. And then there's going to be kind of a little recharge timer on these laws down in the bottom left before we'll be able to move on to some other options. For example, we're going to need police in order to deal with potential protests and riots, which are definitely going to happen. Medicine is going to be important. Education, so we can start getting some new technology. Longer shifts in order to get more value, etc., etc. You already have some sense of where this is going. So the first thing we have to now build is go for administration, and we're going to place down our first tax department. The tax department is where we are going to snag all of our delicious monies from the people. So I'm going to go ahead and build one right along over here, close to the palace. Now, it's not connected to a road right off the bat. You can rotate your buildings, as you may have noticed. Right? You can do something kind of like this. But depending on which direction it's facing, I think that you technically have doors on both ends. So in this case, I'm pretty sure that there's a door over here. If I wanted to go to the roads here, we could set up a quick little road like this, and that should mean that this is now connected to roads. Every building has to be connected to roads, or something simply ain't gonna work. Let's also go ahead and demolish a couple more of these resources. We'll get some extra grain and food as a result. And also, I'd like to get a little bit more wood, because we need to get some sawmills up and running right away. Tax department is now done. Excellent. So from here, we would be able to manage some of our resources and our tax rates. For now, we're only taxing the bourgeois, right? Only the entrepreneurs. Eventually, we'll be able to have more taxes on the workers and the nobles. You can imagine that having high taxes tends to make people a little angry. But when you need a lot of money, what else are you gonna do? It's kind of important to have enough funds to keep society flowing. Hey, Jack Don, you are one of our workers. And he's angry. He's like, what are you doing? You can't tax us. We don't even have jobs. To which we're like, that's actually a good point. We probably should go ahead and give you some jobs and start generating some resources we know we are going to need. So the most obvious thing to work on is to set up a sawmill. That's what we need over here now. So we're going to go to construction, and we want to set up a sawmill. I could set it up over this way. I think I may want to set down another road just for some easier access over here first. So let's do a little of this just so I don't lose track of it. Once this is removed, I can place down a quick sawmill, and it's not going to have any obstructions. Perfect. Now, the game is only going to request that we build one of these, but in reality, I am pretty darn sure I need two of them, because wood production is extremely important to the beginning of the game. You are going to be building lots of stuff, and even if the tutorial isn't telling you to build more stuff, you should keep building stuff, because your people need homes. We've got 100 homeless people right now. That's a lot of angry, upset people, and when they're homeless, there's a good chance of them contracting diseases, which also isn't good. Now, notice we are making some money over here, right? And that's coming from the very meager amount of taxes that we are able to work on. Once this sawmill is built, what's going to end up happening is people will go work over here, namely the worker class is going to work, because the workers do all of the labor, really. But we'll have to start paying them gold, right? So during the working hours, and only during the working hours, they're going to come in here and they're going to start generating my wood. And you can see we're now up to +4 wood per, I guess, like hour or tick, whatever it's going to be. But no longer are we making money. That's because I am paying my workers. That is the idea. Once we are done with the work shift, we'll go right back to generating some cash. So manage this carefully. You want to spend plenty of money in order to make sure that your workers have enough funds to keep themselves afloat, and get those resources up and a-running as fast as you can. Let's go ahead and knock down some more of these buildings. I need to have a little bit of extra wood to work with, because, again, I would like to get a second sawmill up if possible. Now, it's a little risky, I think, to be trying to jump too far ahead of the tutorial, because they're going to tell me I need a lot of other stuff. And that is fair, but at the same time, I know for a fact that if I don't get enough wood going, I'm gonna have some serious problems. So we'll spend wood in order to make some more wood. A second sawmill is in order. We'll place it down right over there. Although we do also need to increase the roads, which costs a tiny little bit of extra gold. Now, something the game wants us to do now is repair the train station, which is located right up over here. Interestingly enough, at least so far as I've experienced this game, you're not actually able to farm any food yourself. You can only ever import it using your train, and actually we are out of lumber. Hang on, let's go ahead and knock some of this down and get some more. That's the danger of building the sawmill. But anyway, you have to import grain. You can refine that grain into food later, which we will see, but you can't grow it yourself. Now, I don't know if maybe eventually technology will allow that. Just understand you're mostly going to be an industrial area and not an agrarian one at all. Let's go ahead and start working on that repair task, and that'll work on overnight, while everyone else builds up some sort of fires and little homeless shelters and just kind of takes a nap together. See, there we go. They're going to go start congregating over there. Thanks for my connections. We have established a supply of grain. Okay. Now, the problem, of course, with the grain connections is we do have to supply the railroad with fuel, but we don't have any coal, so our only real option is wood. And this is one of the reasons having an extra sawmill is so important, because we're going to be consuming some of our wood just getting the train to deliver some grain to me, and I won't have as much to build with. So that's why it's really important to work on that. All right, so now they're telling me that I'm going to need to get some sort of a food processing plant, and they're not wrong about that. We absolutely do. First things first, though, we need to continue tearing down some more of these structures and get some more lumber, or else I'm not going to be building much of anything anytime soon. So we'll go ahead and start working on that first. Then we'll worry about setting up some sort of a grain processing facility. There's a train just arrived. We are now actually getting kind of full on grain over here, so that's interesting. Let's go to a food factory, which you can see in the same way as a sawmill is going to cost us some money per shift in order for people to consume those resources and turn it into useful food. And that's going to get built up overnight. We are full on grain right now because of the stuff I've torn down, but we'll be able to start turning that into some useful food. The question then is what we're going to do with all of that extra food, and the answer is we have to start selling it back to our people in order to make some more money. Such an enormous building. Didn't know grain processing requires so much equipment. And that is why we have the entrepreneurial class in order to procure the means of production, and why we have the workers in order to do the labor. So what do the aristocrats do exactly? Heck if I know. Those guys seem pretty useless to me. Whatever. Let's go ahead and get ourselves a little bit more money as well as some more lumber. We're actually going to be able to sign a new law in just a moment, which we will certainly want to do. So the next step is to start selling off the extra resources. And for this, we need to have a peg house, which is kind of like a cantina, for the workers specifically. Because apparently, our two different social classes don't really like rubbing shoulders with each other, right? So we can set up a little peg house over here, okay? And that'll get the workers someplace to eat, but a bistro also needs to be built in order to make our nobility happy. So we'll go ahead and set something up over here. Go ahead and construct both of those that will advance the primary story. And we're going to see at some point pretty soon people lining up for a bit of extra food. Road is required. Fair enough. Let's go ahead and set that up like so. Boom. All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for thinking of the common folk first. You know, I don't know if that actually has any sort of like, effect as far as like we're taking care of one class before another, but I don't know. We're working on both, dang it. I'm going as fast as I can. There we go. We have a place for respectable people now. Their words, not mine. At the end of every day, more people are going to join in on your city. So right now, we've actually jumped up to 114 population. Obviously, you need enough workers and other classes in order to maintain all of your buildings. So if your population ever falls too low, you're going to find yourself in a lot of trouble. Let's go for our laws. Now, the question is, what do we want first? I'm kind of thinking we could go for something like medicine or maybe a police department. I know that I'll need both eventually. Second shift is also an option, though. And what this does, of course, is it's going to cost us more money, but it does mean that people will be working longer to produce things like more food and more wood. So you know what? I'm going to go ahead and sign second shift as a law. Perfect. All right. So pretty soon we're going to have people demanding some more quests, which we'll go ahead and do now. The aristocrats and the bourgeois are starting to conspire together. They're saying the poor people are primitives and we need to basically take care of their needs in the form of alcohol because that will shut them all up. Haha. And I don't know, maybe in this case I got a point. But we're going to be placing down an alcohol plant as soon as I get myself at least a little bit more lumber. This is why, by the way, I recommend you do not knock down these piles if you don't have any capacity. Otherwise, you're wasting very valuable resources on the map. You really need to make use of everything. You start wasting stuff, you're going to find yourself in a lot of trouble. All right, we're now using up the grain and producing food. And we are producing some more of that oh-so-valuable logs. Let's set down an alcohol plant. Right over here is probably going to be fine. Sure, we'll do that. Of course, we do need to get a road as well. Actually, cancel that real quick. I want to rotate you like that. There we go. A little easy to lose track of some of the rotations, but we did figure that out. Perfect. So that's going to get built up, and that'll be fine. Then we have to decide if we want to build an alehouse or a cabaret. Same exact principle as the cantinas and the bistro, or I guess it's a peg house. People don't want to mingle. The workers need to be able to go and eat and drink in their own place, and the nobility and the bourgeois want to be left alone as well. So be prepared for splitting up your resources between two different needs. Now, I do want to note that we're in a semi-dangerous spot right now. We're going to be running out of gold here pretty darn soon. I may need to turn off, let's say, food production and stop paying people. A little bit anyway, and we may want to turn off other things like maybe alcohol or something. I mean, we've got enough alcohol at the moment. Let's go ahead and pause that as well, And it looks like that did reduce how much we are spending. I just need to survive a little bit longer until we can get things like the peg houses and stuff up and a-running. Otherwise, we have a small problem. Let's go ahead and build out the roads. There we go. So now we can start selling off our extra alcohol. Yeah, we desperately need some extra funds. And maybe building that second sawmill was a little too aggressive. I'm not sure. All right, there's a pretty lady waiting at reception. Oh, who do you want to talk to? It's the nurse. She's trying to say, hey, waiting at the hospital, people are getting sick, and you're not wrong. There are actually a lot of people getting sick, and they're going to start dying pretty soon if we don't find a way to get some sort of state-run medicine. Now, I'm pretty sure that the bourgeois are going to be like, you know, we could make a profit off of this, but we're going to be like, nah. And eventually they're going to be like, you know what, fair enough. It's actually better to have medicine than none because otherwise there's not enough workers, and then we're going to have no economy. And if there's anything important to the bourgeois, it is the economy. Now, I see a lot of people who are currently very hungry. I see a lot of people who are currently ill, especially the workers, and I see a lot of sad people. Yeah, that is unfortunate. Quite a problem to have a lot of sad people. Let's go ahead and turn off this sawmill since right now we are making plenty. And we actually don't have enough money, so I'm going to turn everything off for the moment. And now we're starting to make some gold again. Fantastic. All right. People are going into the peg houses over here. They will be going into the ale house tonight. Now, you can only ever have 3 people in the peg house or the bistro at a time, and then 6 people in queue. If you see a lot of people in queue, it's probably a sign that you need to be building up some more peg houses, especially since we do have plenty of food at the moment. So I would like to do that if we could, but that does take a lot more money than I currently have available. There we go. The money's starting to come in a little bit more now. You can see we're selling all this extra food, and this alcohol is making a big difference. Not that the workers have a whole lot to work with, mind you. They're not exactly known for being super duper wealthy, but you get the idea. Let's also go ahead and place down a cabaret, another place that we'll be able to sell our alcohol, but this time to the wealthy elites and the bourgeois. I'm trying to stack up a little bit of extra funds so that we will be able to turn back on some of our enterprises later. Of course, the other thing we could be doing is just demolishing more houses in the meantime. That does get me some much-needed gold in order to keep things afloat for a little bit. I really don't want to get too much extra grain, though. The trains are taking up a lot of my wood right now. It's kind of unfortunate. I could turn this off for a little bit since we currently have too much grain, and that might save me at least a little bit of extra wood, so don't be afraid to turn that off if necessary. Now we can go to laws. I'm going to go ahead and pick up medicine as my next law, because that is what people are currently asking for, and this is going to be our best way of taking care of these sick people. So let's set up a hospital. It does cost a chunk of money, but you know what? That's not terribly surprising. I'm an American. I understand how expensive healthcare can truly be. We'll place one of these down, get that built up overnight, and hopefully deal with the very sick and gravely ill people that are around. At some point, we'll also need to get ourselves some cemeteries and stuff, but for now, that's just going to have to be good enough. Now people are asking for housing. Unsurprising, they don't want to live in the dirt anymore. Built a hospital, but haven't built some basic houses. Fun. Well, we'll go ahead and start working on that once I get some more lumber, mind you, which it's going to be a little while. The hospital can take care of about 30 people, which is pretty nice, so all of our gravely ill people are being taken care of right now. So we managed to deal with this before a lot of people start dying and trigger a whole mess of depression. So I'm going to go ahead and say that that is a very good thing for me. Still don't care too much about the alcohol plant. We'll worry about getting more grain and stuff later. For now, everything's kind of looking good. Let's go ahead and start building out some houses then. So we'll start with, let's say, some simple wooden houses. I do think it's important that we take care of our workers class as fast as we can. So we'll set up, let's say, 3 houses over there. You might say, does this mean you're going to be a champion of the workers? Oh, I don't know. I might be. I mean, I don't mind the idea of being a champion of the workers, but I also know that we really need to take care of that business class. If there's any class that I don't terribly respect, it's probably the aristocrats and the nobility. But oh well. 15 more people have joined our sorry little town. Why? I don't know, but here they are. Boom. Okay. So everyone get to work. Now we're going to start seeing that we're draining those funds. It's very important that we start getting as much funds up before every work shift as possible. But if I have to, I'll simply turn things off. Why is nobody over here working at the food factory? Not enough workers in the city? Well, that doesn't sound entirely correct. Really? It's because so many people are sick? Now, this, by the way, is the reason that the nobility are important. Different types of workers will work different types of jobs. For example, we do need the nobility in order to work the hospital. We also need them to run things like the tax department. So, technically speaking, the nobility are kind of important. I actually don't even know what jobs the bourgeois technically are going to do. So I hope that that ends up making itself obvious later. I mean, I'm hoping they actually have some sort of a use. But that's a lot of workers who currently aren't doing a whole lot. Well, at least we have enough money that we should be able to survive through this. Let's go ahead and now construct up at least a couple of cottages if and we can. One over there would do just fine, and then maybe another one over here by the tax office. Sure, we'll go ahead and place there, and then place down, you guessed it, some more roads to make sure everything is nicely connected. Now that we have finished with the hospital and some basic housing, the game is progressing toward an education system, which we'll be able to use in order to start getting some sort of innovations. This might be a little bit more expensive than I can handle at the very beginning of the game, so we'll build this, but I wouldn't say it's the absolute top priority. In fact, I might even argue that it's a little bit more important that we get some of these homeless people taken care of. Mostly we have some homeless nobles, bourgeois, actually a pretty good number of nobles and bourgeois who could use a bit of help. But some workers as well for sure. Now that the taverns are open, we're starting to make ourselves a little bit more money, so that's certainly good. I guess I could accommodate some more workers. The thing is, this costs a lot of wood and a fair bit of gold for not an absolute ton of value. What it does is stop people from getting too depressed. And we do need to address that for absolute sure, but is it the top priority? Hard to say. Let's get back to the railroad, by the way, and turn this back on so we can have the train start delivering some more grain, because we've used most of it up throughout the day in order to make some more alcohol and some bread. But the good news is we're going to have enough food that once everyone starts going back to the bars and to the cantinas, we'll be able to sell all this off and make some profit. We can get some additional laws, and at this point we do need to pick up education. Technically, that's what we're supposed to do. The next thing we would do is then build up an academy, which again I believe is another job for the nobility, because apparently only the aristocrats are allowed to be educated folks. No poor people allowed to learn in schools. That's ridiculous. What would you do with an education anyway, am I right? And do you see why we start getting some class tensions? There it is. That's how it's gonna work. All right, academy, I guess we could go ahead and place it down. But then again, that's gonna cost me a lot of money. Maybe we hold off on that for a minute and take care of our housing crisis first, and then we'll worry about it. More laws are in order. I'm going to go ahead and preemptively get the policing law, because I'm pretty confident that's going to be one of the next important things for us to get. Not to mention, it's only a matter of time before we start having some sort of protest movement. That will certainly be fun. We've got a little bit of money and some wood. Let's go ahead and actually advance with our main quest line. I'm going to be placing down an academy. This is where everyone is going to educate themselves into good old-fashioned citizens. Boom. Looks beautiful. Now we are able to perform research. All right, so Miss Simmons will take care of all of that. And unfortunately, the workers are going to be left out in the cold. But maybe someday that will change. Who knows? It could happen. So that's more jobs for all of our nobility. Good for them, I suppose. And unfortunately, I'm seeing that we have a lot of sad and depressed people. This does seem to be only getting worse as time goes on. We have a lot of hungry nobles. For whatever reason, they are not properly feeding themselves. With 2 bistros, I think we should be able to handle that. But I guess not. Sir Offenberg is introducing himself. He is going to be our security chief. A little bit of a controversial figure, but again, if you guys want to find out more about him, you should probably play the game for yourself. Well, we did have our first death by disease, unfortunately. We're trying to treat everybody, but it doesn't seem to be working amazingly. The good news is not a lot of people are starving anymore, so at least we've solved that problem. We just have a lot of sadness and depression, but so far this seems kind of manageable, and we've dealt with pretty much all of the homelessness. There is still a high disease chance, but it's not the worst thing in the world. All right, so you know what we're going to do? We're going to go ahead and end this video here because I actually have a series in mind for this, and we're going to be progressing for a fair bit longer. So stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen, and we will see how long we can survive in the midst of social turmoil. Thank you all for watching. Of course, you can hit that like button if you wouldn't mind. Leave a comment, subscribe, hit the notify bell, and again, thank you to 1C Entertainment for sponsoring this video. You can find links in the description down below if you'd like to learn more. My name is Pravus, and I will see you guys next time.